Hi everybody, welcome to this briefing on Microsoft Places. At time of recording, Microsoft Places just went generally available last week, but as many of you in the space know, it's been a long time coming and there's been lots of work on it on tap and preview. So what we'll do, we'll have a quick look at the sped up version of the demo from Kerry at Microsoft Ignite, and then we'll talk about the features in more detail.
And generally available as of today, Microsoft Places.
If we look at the new calendar in Teams, elements of both Copilot and Places have been added in. Across the top, you see these location icons. And let's look at today. When I click on that, it opens the Places card. A great snapshot of my day. It tells me what colleagues are coming in. It gives me helpful advice. It could also help me book rooms and desks. And it's told me today is a great day to go into the office. So I'll quickly update it. You can see my location has changed to the office. Automatically, it brings up to me, hey, you haven't booked any rooms. You're going into the office. I can quickly use QuickBook to book rooms for meetings. Now I want to show you team guidance. I know that Tuesday's probably going to be the best day to go in. I quickly set Tuesday as a team collaboration day and provide recommendations as to why to go in. We've also added workplace presence. In Teams, you can set an actual location there. So whether it's in office or remote, or you can put a specific building.
We can identify a shared space just by people plugging into it with Teams client. If I come along and plug in, that desk gets automatically reserved for me. We're going to have all that signal come into space analytics, but also we're working to cross-connect between Teams rooms and Places.
Chris and Nathan have been very deep on the product, so we thought we'd do a three-person briefing this time to go deep in Places, what it is, what it isn't, how it works, what the licensing story is, what the real-world story is. So Chris, maybe I could throw to you for a quick intro first.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, good evening. Not sure we're on all three time zones here. Chris Fitzsimmons. I'm a senior solutions architect with AVI-SPL with a big focus on the Teams platform and more recently Places, because that's the newest, shiniest item that's come my way from Microsoft.
Awesome. And Nathan?
Nathan Chapman. I'm the CTO at Generation E. I look after all our technology strategy and portfolio, including our workplace technology practice, which includes smart building and AV and meetings and networking.
As Chris said, we're going truly as global as we can go for all the information we need. Chris, I know you've got a bit of a deck to talk us through the fundamentals of it. Do you want to start by throwing that up? Is that the best place to start?
Sure. I think it's worth answering the question, what's Microsoft thinking?
That's always a good place to start.
It is, isn't it? I find that to be a good question that's kept me employed for some time. The context of Places is really important because a lot of people look at Places and go, oh, look, it's a room booking system, or look, it's a desk booking system. And I think it's worth talking about the fact that yes, it does those things, but no, it's not just that, and it's not another Me Too. So Microsoft positioning as of Ignite is this concept of the AI-powered workplace, and they've got these sort of three pillars of coordinate, collaborate, and optimize. And if you break down how those things happen, coordinate and optimize are basically built off Places. So collaborate seamlessly has been the thing that Teams rooms and the Teams platform have really aimed to solve for, and I think most people would agree done a pretty good job. The coordinate piece and the optimize piece are really only just starting to be addressed by Places, right? So coordinate really is the sort of removal of friction between colleagues as they come to work or they return to work after a period in fully remote or they go into hybrid. How do we take some of the edges off that jigsaw puzzle and figure out when should I go in the office? Who else is in the office? Where are they planning? All that kind of stuff, right? And then how do I
and
make
the kind
sure
of hypothesis here is the need for coordinate has gone up radically in most organizations because we've continued to be hybrid.
Absolutely. You can't assume that all the people you need to talk to are going to be in the building on any given day.
I mean, you can almost assume they're probably not, at least certainly in Europe.
Right. And the fun part about that is that whilst Microsoft is still a hybrid company and still encourages flexible work, lots of companies do not. And the wind is blowing in one direction or another at the moment.
Yeah.
Organizations need to solve that problem. Even if I want my people to come back to work, they better have a good time while they're there. And they better not suffer regret and go, that was a waste of time. Why did I spend an hour on the train?
The term we've been using for that is hybrid work coordination. Is getting at the when and where of going to a workplace or working remote with the context of what your colleagues and peers are doing. And Microsoft's well positioned because they've got a lot of that context in the Graph API and that data.
They have a lot of info. They have a lot of tools like devices in the field now and I think we should talk about data sources all up a bit later on, but there's lots of inputs to this big pool of data that Microsoft is essentially aggregating and surfacing inside places. So the optimized part really is about giving businesses actionable insight about the use of their real estate, their rooms, their floors, their desks, and helping them answer questions about that, like how often is this floor used? Do I have enough 4-person rooms? Is my marketing team really coming in 3 days a week, or is it still only coming in 1? And why does no one ever go to Chicago on a Tuesday? Those kinds of questions are what the optimized part of this is aiming to solve. And then the devices that Microsoft has into your building in the middle column are there to help solve on both sides, right? They're there to make sure that your users have a good time and can collaborate effectively, but also they're data points for
there's a bit of an extension story on the devices thing as well, so we get into sensors and badging and other bits and pieces. I guess the big thing on the Coordinate is Microsoft own Exchange. Exchange is most people's calendaring platform, and historically the third-party systems that have done stuff like this have obviously tied into Exchange as well. So we have your rooms if you're an MTR customer, so we have that data. We have your Exchange, and guess what? Your users are using Outlook and Teams, so how about we bring this world together?
Yeah, and that sort of I'm not going to slide to death here, but I think that's the other piece, is that Places has actually evolved over the sort of year, even the year that I've been touching it since we got private preview, and obviously it was evolving before that, but the sort of outcome that I'm seeing as we head to GA is not that Places is an app that everyone needs to go learn how to use or be alarmed about having to get their user base to understand. Places has become a collection of features and experiences that are available in the natural flow of work, right? They're in Teams, they're in Outlook, they're in the little things that you mouse over with the people card, right? And yes, there is a Places web experience, and yes, there'll probably be a Places mobile app, but today you can do everything you need to do in Places most of the time in the apps you're already familiar with, right? And to be specific, that means new calendar in Teams and new Outlook, as well as the Outlook web experience, right? Anywhere we're in the modern calendar, we're getting all our little Places, queues and bits and pieces and stuff, and we'll show some of
that. New Outlook one is a really good call out, Chris, because like most people are not on new Outlook, certainly not in enterprise. But the nice thing is, because it's surfacing in Teams and all the Places web app, actually, and keep me honest, because you guys are closer to it, it feels like you could get by with you do those bits in Teams if you're not new Outlook ready yet.
If you've got the new calendar in Teams, yes.
Yeah. So
yes, it is available in Outlook. It's available in Teams mobile.
But I think it's these native experiences that are built into, again, the sort of natural flow of work that people are used to is what sort of sets Places apart. I think that's a lot of people that's why a lot of people are interested in it, and it's a more native experience.
And actually, maybe we should probably go up 30,000 feet here and explain what Places is and what it does for some people, and then come back down again into the weeds.
We're basically saying, why don't you do the tour of the fundamentals, and then Nathan pick up on the integration and talk about the integration of what you've done.
All right. Okay, so this is Outlook in the browser on my demo account. So this is what my week looks like, or what half of what I wish it looks like and half of what it actually looks like. But as you can see here, you've got our familiar presence little icons here. And we've had these for a while, right? They used to be able to say in office or at home or remote, right? But what Places is doing is adding capability to that. So if I click on this now, you can see that on Tuesday the 3rd, I'm planned to be in Toronto all day. And it's also showing me who else is planning to be in that day. And I can go click around here and do some more stuff. But before we get into what else we can do, the settings key here is important. This allows me to set up my generic work plan. This is called a work plan. So this is a core feature of Places. We'll talk about what core features mean in a minute, but this basically allows me to set up my average week. So where am I going to be on each day? Which office am I going to be in? And once you save that, genericizes your calendar. Once you've done that, you can then go in and tweak a particular day. So actually on a Friday here, I could change where I'm going to be, and I'm going to be remote. and now that changes the information. It shows me who's going to be around, who's doing what. So that allows two things. It allows places to see what I'm planning to do, but more importantly, other people to see what I'm planning to do. So that's where this coordinate piece comes in, because now if I was other Chris, and went and had a look, he'd be able to see what I was doing. I was planning to be in Toronto, right? And that is the experience that Places gives to everyone that's using it if it's turned on in your tenant, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
where
can
your colleagues are.
skim over a meeting and see who was intending to be in the office or remote. I've got a meeting and I can see if it's worth having this size of room or that size of room based on who's there.
The other experiences here now, so on Wednesday I actually set these meetings up differently. I set these meetings up deliberately to be in-person meetings. So that's another new Outlook feature that Microsoft is including in the Places melange. So set an event as an in-person event when you build it, and then also on the other side of that, respond as a hybrid or in-person attendee when you get the invite, right? And all of that information then goes into room recommendations for booking rooms. And so this UI here, you can see on Wednesday the 4th, I've got 3 meetings here that are in person and don't have rooms booked for them. So now I've got the nice button here. I click book rooms, and you can go see I've got all these meetings here, and it's making suggestions for each meeting. So it's looking and going, okay, you need this. These are some available spaces based on responses, and you can actually scroll through them. Now, if I didn't want to scroll through them and I just accepted Places as recommendation here, I can book all of them at once. So if I click book selected rooms, it's going to book, I think, 5 for the 5 meetings on that day that I've made in person, and it's done all at once. So that's one thing, that's booking rooms, but also it knows I'm in the office. I've planned to go in, but I haven't got a desk booked. So now I can hit book now and it will pop up a desk booking UI, right? There's the pool that we've got available in Toronto.
Talk us through what a pool is, Chris, because that's
that's a goodie. And this story has changed a little bit, thankfully, but a desk pool is a bit like a meeting room in terms of exchange. It's a collection of seats. It's not, and so desk booking in Places started out as the ability to pull one off the shelf in a pool. So the way they show up in Outlook, the way they show up in Exchange as artifacts is as a resource account with a capacity of seats. And then when you book a desk off a pool, the available capacity is decremented by 1. So if we had a desk pool of 10 seats and I said I want to book a desk in it, when Nathan comes along, it'll show 9 seats available. But it does not allow me to pick the desk by the window next to my favorite plant or a long way from the bathroom. It's privacy. And that's probably worth talking about, right? Microsoft's being extraordinarily circumspect about anything that might invalidate privacy. Yeah, they don't want me to know that Nathan's sitting in that seat, essentially.
Yeah. Which is a very hard line on the privacy line. I can imagine lots of organizations wanting very specific information. This tool is not that. The third-party things that do that obviously exist, but this tool is not. When did Sarah badge in? When did Sarah badge out? What desk did she sit at? Where did she go then? This is Sarah was in the building, and if Sarah elected to tell you she was in this desk clump on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, I think, and that could be one of the challenges Microsoft has around adoption, is that they're hiding some of the useful data. Like, it can raise the insights and give you some indication that, hey, there's a challenge with building occupancy, but it's not making it easy to find out, well, which teams or people are the ones that are not adhering to their work plan that they said they were
I
going to
thought
do.
the analytics were down on the org level now. I thought you could filter a bit further than just all up.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen so far, it's still a bit hard to get to the detailed data. And again,
It feels like that's not design intent, though, is it? To be like, it's not a who in marketing
this isn't a tracking
coming
tool
to the office. Yeah.
I think what I've heard Brennan and Ilya talk about is the desire to be able to look down to the level of a team or a sub-org and say marketing's doing a good job of coming in when it's meant to, and engineering are not. Do you know what I mean? But not to go much further down.
I'm surprised they're not allowing admins to, even if they put a policy where it's off and the org turned it on, to let people on the very back end see it, not the managers, but whoever's allowed to see it.
Yeah, it's like phone number obfuscation in CDR records and stuff as well. They've got similar ideas in other products where you can have a setting so that by default this is hidden for privacy reasons.
Yeah.
It'd probably be better that they give that final decision to the customer.
Okay, so let's go back in here. So the other core kind of user experience change that people with Places will see is the Places Finder, which is essentially an enhancement or massive improvement upon Room Finder. So if you hit new event in your calendar and make it an in-person event and choose a room, you can now use this Places Finder, not Room Finder, to go find the room. And that is this bolt-on experience here. This is available in this user interface. It's also available in the Places web app user interface, and this is a premium feature. So you need a Teams premium license to get this. But this gives you a nice list of rooms. It's filterable. You get images, and then you get these little help icons here that allow you to look at the facilities of the space. And depending on how well you've built these out, this can be really useful because you can actually filter by features or by capacity or by whatever. So capacity's up in the right, so I can say I only want to see rooms with a capacity of more
And when
than
you
8.
say all the metadata there, Chris, that's out of Exchange / Finder, isn't it? That's
Yeah, so that's
Places-
part of the Places
Places
built-in
directory, yeah.
Oh,
Which is like
okay.
an extension of the metadata, if you like, or a mapping of Exchange resources to these Places directory.
And there is some of this is in Room Finder already, right? Capacity and I think disability access might be in Room Finder already. In Places Finder or the database, you start adding more stuff like what kind of video display do you have? Is it MTR enabled? And you can, there's even arbitrary tagging, right? You can add even more tags here, and if you mouse over them, they'll show up. And if you filter using the features tab, so you can add arbitrary text like Dell Doc, and then search for Dell Doc in your features, and it'll filter down or whatever. So that's true of rooms and of desk pools. And going around your building and making sure you've got nice pictures of your spaces that represent what it looks like is a really important thing. And this allows me to go, I want that room.
Places Finder is also what exposes the mapping as well, where you can actually link them.
Yeah, and we're going to look at that in the UI in a minute. This is Places Finder in Outlook. So that enhanced kind of little gem tooltip up here, and then Places Finder are really what you're going to notice in Outlook. And this is also will be in the new Teams calendar as well. But if we head over to the Places app, now we get a different view of the world. So you get this Explore tab, which is, it's intended to be like the homepage of your building, right? So if you've it already knew that I was planning to work in Toronto on today. So it's showing me the Toronto Explore page. It's giving me the address. It's helping me book a room. And these are instantaneous bookings. So this is right here, right now. If I click this, it'll start me a desk booking for the day or a room booking for the day, right? So now I'm getting the mapping experience, and I can go decide which room I want on which floor, or sorry, which desk pool I want on which floor, and I can do the same with rooms. But that's a right now thing. It also will show you, if you build the links in AVI, still hasn't deployed a ton of extra stuff here, you can actually have these additional links. Right? So this is just our link to our support page. But you could add, if you are using a third-party system, this is where you can add a quasi-integration, which is essentially a link off somewhere else.
It could be catering requests or
car parking booking, or even useful information like what the nearest tube station is. You can build this stuff down here. This will get more feature rich, I think, as time goes on. The integration here will start like this. It'll probably end up into sort of native Teams apps. This is currently the answer to the question, can I do catering in Places? Yes, if you have a web service that you can build a link to in here.
Yeah, build a Power App for it or use it.
Yeah, exactly right. Possibly more usefully is this view, which is the People tab. And this allows me to see what my mates are up to. Okay, so this list of people here is a list of collaborators. If you come in as a new user, it'll actually build one based on your graph presence, like chats, emails, meetings, blah, blah, blah. And or you can curate it, right? So I can go down here and add and remove people. And then
I like this curation there, because I think I can think of scenarios like there's a bunch of grads joining the Sydney office and they're over different departments, so they're not like big peers in the teams, but it's interesting to know when your peers on the grad scheme are in the office.
Yeah, I think you'll probably find that the people that you actually want to make an effort to go and meet in person are not necessarily the ones you're already collaborating with digitally anyway. That's the point, is to be able to reach more people.
Yeah, my skip level is in the office is interesting, right?
And the more people you put in this list, the better, frankly, because you can also do, this is a demo account and I just added 6 for the hell of it, but if you click
it's different views
here and start saying, oh, you know what, I'm normally in Toronto, but next week I'm going to Chicago, I can now see who the Chicago people are going to be. Or if I'm going to London or at a global organization like I am, and we didn't add London here, but if I did that, I could see, I'm going to be in London next week because I'm on an international visit. Who's going to be in London? So that really starts to give that coordination piece some legs.
The key thing of the value perception here is as long as that information is true. So people need to have configured their default weeks and be tuning that and sticking to it to make the forecast accurate.
There is another view in the top right where you can just get like a summary of who's in each office as well.
Yeah, you can have
Oh, that's
again, you can
nice.
filter that as well too. So there's lots of different ways of doing this. But to Tom's point, what you put into it, what information goes in from people doing the right things and from data sources that we'll talk about here in a minute, really drive the value of places. When we first started piloting this with ourselves and then with customers, one of the things that we recommended was have team leads set a recurring calendar on everyone to say, update your places next week on a Friday afternoon, or update your work plan, just so that everyone can see what's up. Because otherwise everyone just sits to their default and no one changes it ever again, and then they just go in the office.
One thing you'll find during deployment, though, is there is some mappings or associations with the intra ID attributes and users and these names of buildings. So you may need to do a bit of a review of your intra ID attributes you've got set and the naming convention you've got for buildings and locations, and make sure that maps to this, because if it doesn't line up, it can cause issues.
Yeah, and also don't name your buildings after cities, because that's what we did, and that's suddenly become a really bad idea.
It's like naming meeting rooms after cities. It gets really confusing.
Yeah. I'm going to be in Chicago, but it's in Toronto on the 4th floor.
Yeah,
I see that a lot. So everything we talked about so far is forecasting and booking, but the other tie-in with Teams is your actual location. So be that manually or dynamically.
I think ideally this is highly automated, right? Using data and potentially sensors, but we don't necessarily always need sensors. There's a lot of data available already to get this sort of thing. One of the challenges we've seen with customers with solutions in the past is that if things require a check-in, for example, for a meeting room to make sure you've checked into a meeting room, or if I've booked a desk and I have to check in, human nature is going to mean that people will often not do it. If they don't have to do it and they can still sit at the desk or use a meeting room, they're probably not going to do it, right? Which causes
so unless you've got that like crazy thing where you de-network the desk to force them to do it.
Yeah, you turn off the power. Yeah. And those have been solutions to that problem in the past, but they get quite expensive. You're going to do that sort of thing at every desk. There's hardware and infrastructure you need to deploy out at scale to every desk, and that gets really expensive really quickly. Yeah, there's a number of methods we can use to get location or other signals that it provides more context beyond what Microsoft's already got. And there's already a lot we know about the calendar and the meeting bookings and things they've got. There are APIs that Microsoft has released as part of Places as well to make this work with many vendors. They've announced several companies have already worked with and tested. But the APIs support things like occupancy, which is just like a binary status is this space occupied or not? Is it in use? There's another input type that's actually a people count. So going beyond just is the space in use is actually how many people are in that. There's also then what they call an inferred occupancy, which is more, it's an estimate based on some other data that you could actually feed in as well. So it's sort of a soft people count that may not be as accurate. And then there's actually a heartbeat type of sensor input, which is more for just health checks and device monitoring. But there's also a badge type. So that's for your building access control, where we can use that as a signal to determine if someone arrived at the building. So one of the things that we've actually done is combine some of these things together. We've got an access control system that we can get signals from and integrated that with Places. So that gives us a count of how many people have badged in somewhere in that building. But even with building access control and badging, there can be gaps in that data because you'll have things like people tailgating or other issues where they're not necessarily captured, right? So one of the things we've been doing is experimenting with other types of data like network and Wi-Fi. So we can use network authentication and information from the network infrastructure to confirm that, okay, someone associated with the network or plugged into a network and did added to an X authentication. So we can use that as a signal type. We've actually fed that into and told Places that was a badge signal. We've got a unique identifier for an individual and sent that in. And we can actually blend those two. So if they didn't,
so for those not familiar, just to level set for everybody. So some offices obviously they have badge in and out of the main turnstiles in the building, but they'll badge to the floor, maybe even badge to the desk. So you can touch an NFC and that's how you track. So you're using a variant of that in this case.
And the hierarchy of the structure of the data that's in this Places directory supports those sort of concepts as a building and a floor, and it goes down to like the spaces and desks. So you can map these signals and events to the appropriate place in the hierarchy. But so by using a combination of actual badge swipes and networking, if they didn't actually swipe in and they followed someone in without swiping their badge, was a pretty high chance they're going to associate with a network if they're a staff member. So we'll get the fact that they turned up to their building. So we can blend multiple types of signals together to get a more accurate picture of what's really happening. Another one we're looking at is even Entra ID logs. You can, depending on how your network is designed, you may be able to get information from the Entra ID logs that indicate where a person is, which building they're connecting from, or where on the network they're coming from.
Those third-party signals are generally pretty precise and useful, but I think for people that are concerned, they need to go and do tons of third-party integration. Microsoft is building tools to give signals already, right? Things like the BYOD plugin.
Yep.
You're not only are you getting analytics out of a BYOD room, for example, it's also showing up in places as a usage of a room, and it's a sort of a proxy for occupancy. And the same with bookable desks. The Teams bookable desk feature, which is I plug into a known shared device and it reserves a desk for me, actually is linked to places. It will decrement the available seats in your desk pool, and that will also flag as a use. So even if you have no occupancy sensors and no badging and nothing else, if you enable bookable desks and if you enable BYOD in the Pro Management portal, you can use those sensors, and people counting off MTRs shows up as a people count in the Places portal. I think the really nice thing is that the Pro portal and Places are feeding from the same data lake. It's not, oh, Places talks to Pro portal. They're both getting access to the same data, and they're serving it up to different audiences, right? So your Places analytics pages are more useful to facilities owners and building managers and stuff like that. Pro Portal has a lot of that info, but really it's for techies and owners of MTRs and technology managers, and you don't really want them to have the same environment. I think Microsoft sometimes gets accused of having too many portals, but I think in this instance, having Places and Pro Portal views of similar data presented differently with different context is actually
presented
quite a good
differently,
idea.
isn't it? Like a facilities person thinking about real estate investment it's a different perspective to my room's online. And Microsoft's also said at Ignite that they're heading in that direction as far as network mapping and Wi-Fi mapping goes. That feels like a big unlock for me. Like once you can have, if people walk into the office with their laptop, I'm aware they're in that office. That takes the dependency of good behavior on checking in much lower.
Where it appears the data side of this, which is around that sort of optimized category, is that there's disaggregating lots of sets of data. So they've got their own first party data with graph, and in that context they've already got. We can start to integrate what are often existing systems that are not necessarily new, like access control. Most buildings have some sort of access control typically, so that's a fairly easy one to bring in to give more signals. But then in the future, I'd imagine they're going to start adding things like environmental data as well, so we could bring in temperature, humidity, and other things as well. So
yeah,
that makes that data a lot more rich as well, right? So
that Explore page for Places even looks like a place you might show that. I think a lot of other platforms already say, hey, you can see the air quality in this building or air quality on this floor and temperature. Right? It would seem like a no-brainer to me to surface that data.
And some of the
on
MTR
Explore
OEMs
page.
already have those sensors in their devices.
Exactly. Like Cisco
there's
has
been
it
nowhere
built
for that
in.
information to go.
Yeah.
Now there might be somewhere for it to go.
Yeah, and Microsoft is well positioned to answer these questions because of the footprint they have of the gear. Okay, and then just really quickly show you guys what happens in Teams. This is my Teams calendar for our demo user, and you've got your little personality icon up here. Now, today you've got this remote / in the office trigger, and with Places you can obviously change it, but also Places will dynamically change it for you. So if you are known by Places to have checked into a building, plugged into a BYOD system or a desk, or even wandered into the right Wi-Fi location, depending on how your extensions and third-party data has been set up, this will dynamically change to say Chris is in the office. All right, we have
This is similar to what we had in Link and Skype for Business. If people had that, we could dynamically set your location based on subnet, and obviously Teams has all the enum on one subnet, so it's bringing these two stories together that it will be dynamic.
Yeah, based on whatever triggers you've got. So whether those are third-party ones like Nathan was talking about, whether it's Teams native stuff, there's all kinds of ways of doing that. All right.
Yeah, Places Finder exposes this new mapping experience that we've got. So the maps that are built in here get mapped to the Places directory. So there are assets and spaces and objects that we can represent in a map that are linked to things in the Places directory. So the format that they're using for this is a format called IMDF. It's the Indoor Mapping Data Format. It's apparently was created, I think, or led by Apple originally, but it is a published and source standard now for mapping. It's used broadly in the industry for indoor mapping of things like shopping centers and things as well. So if you have been to big shopping centers where you can navigate, these maps are actually basically big JSON files of just coordinates and objects that are in here that we link. Now, Microsoft doesn't provide a tool to create the maps themselves. One of the things with a deployment is you need to find a tool that will help you create these maps. We'd recommend you get a tool that allows you to manage that yourself over time as well, because if you want to do minor updates and moving furniture around or all those sort of things, it's easy and much more convenient to be able to go out and do that yourself. So Microsoft I think have nominated 2 partners that they've worked with during the preview so far, which was Archaeologic and Pointer. We have used some other ones as well, like Mapped-In, but these companies can help you usually import any PDFs or plans you've got. They've often got a conversion process. Some of them using some AI sort of tools to convert that into a plan and build out this sort of JSON-based map. And then what you do is you overlay into that your different assets you've got, like rooms and desks, and then you can download those maps in this IMDF format and then upload that into the Microsoft Places directory. You then need to link your exchange resources like your rooms and desks to the maps as well. So there's a bit of a process to go through of getting the map created, getting it uploaded, and then linking your assets to that map as well. So that as you click on each of these rooms, they highlight in the map as you're seeing now.
There's a bit of work to do there with either with a partner or with a vendor.
Yeah.
Like it's not throw a PDF of your office up and it will automatically.
This part. Yeah.
I think the other thing that's interesting here is that this mapping experience is going to show general location. If you have a big floor with lots of desk pools and lots of rooms, you can actually start to see the identifiers of individuals if they've booked pools, if they're of sufficient size. One of the things we learnt during the onboarding of Places was that if you don't have big enough desk pools, it won't show people in them because that's potentially personally identifiable data. So if you have big desk pools of 30 desks and Nathan's already booked one, I can see from here that Nathan has booked a desk in that pool. But if that pool gets too small, it stops showing me that Nathan's in there because it thinks that's a privacy issue. The other thing that we alluded to the fact that this is a desk pool booking system. They've announced and released individual bookable desks, and that appears to contain a new construct called a segment. And that's another layer in the Places database, right at the lowest, I think the lowest hierarchy. It's a bit like a room, but it's now a segment. That appears to be a sort of subset of a desk pool that will again allow you to choose spots. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to pick a desk's resource account, but it's only going to show you a segment on a map. And I think that's how they're going to do the obfuscation of location again. Because if I book desk number 123, it needs some kind of construct to be individually bookable by me, but I don't think that Microsoft is going to show desk 123 directly on the map. I think they're going to put it in its own segment, and that's how they're going to obfuscate while still providing individual desk booking. I think there's a really interesting point here that needs exploring and maybe randomly speculating about now, which is the interaction between Places and other things. Because what I've heard time and again from certain vertical customers is that they love the idea of Places, but they have specific niche use cases that Places doesn't serve. For example, a law firm, they have run-of-the-mill meeting rooms, and then they have client-facing rooms. And the client-facing rooms are the all singing, all dancing, freshly spritzed flowers on the table. Choose what shape sandwiches you want. It goes through a client services team who choose the room based on the preferences of the lawyer involved, and that is not what Places is built to do at the moment. And how do I therefore reconcile what I'm going to use, probably still use my third-party system for those high-touch curated experiences versus what I'm going to do with cube farms and general production floors in the same business? And the answer really is Outlook and Exchange, right? Which is because the two obviously will honor each other, and you can book over here. And also Places honors your permissions, right? So if I don't have permission to book a room, Places won't show me the room, which is a really key thing to remember. So if you've got some executive rooms that you're not meant to be booking, Places isn't going to break all the rules about whether you can book them or not. So they can interact. And if I do want to have a desk booking system that allows me to pick desk 1234. If I use that room booking system, as long as desk 1234 has an Exchange presence, then Places can remove it from the count and can prevent me booking it through Places. So it's okay to do both.
Yeah.
I don't quite know how pretty that's going to be, but I think over time, this sort of ecosystem will find a bit of an equilibrium.
In the legal customers I've worked with in the past, like the client-facing rooms has been a whole different system that client services run, and then like the general business users would be more like this type of system. That I think I agree with you, Chris. That feels like the current split is this is not trying to solve the problem of client-facing in FinServ. It's you've got multiple offices, you've got hybrid workers, you've got nothing going on at the moment. This is a big step up.
But using that extensibility of embedding another app in there is probably how you'd work around that in the meantime.
We know this is how Microsoft solutions work, isn't it? We get something out there and then partners innovate on it, the API comes, more work will be done based on customer feedback.
I think the other thing, that the elephant in the room that we haven't talked about and need to talk about, is the fact that the administration interface for this is still PowerShell. And I know that's default Microsoft behavior, and I know that's what always happens, but it's still great because this is not an IT nerd's tool. Places should be for business owners, facilities managers, building managers, and non-Microsoft technical users. The fact that you have to go to your Exchange admin and say, I want to change the picture over here, is, I'm sure, going to change, but it's a little bit of a tough chat
won't
at
love
the moment.
that, and Exchange won't love that.
It's not great, right? So I do think that's an area.
It makes sense to do PowerShell first because there is a lot of bulk information you need to bring in, which was
100%. Initial config.
But once you get it there, doing that, as I said, like with maps as well, you should use a mapping tool that allows you to easily update them yourselves. But then you still have to go back and update that back into the Places.
Let's talk a bit about features and licensing then. Microsoft has divided the feature set of Places into kind of two. There's Places core features and Places premium features, and Places core is essentially included in the run-of-the-mill enterprise licenses. So if you've got E3, E5, I think even F licenses, you get some Places related features, and some of them you might argue are not really Places features, they're Outlook features, but they're Places adjacent at least. And these are they, right? So you get to set your work plan. That's that average week setup that we looked at. You get to update your workplace location, so you get to show I'm in the office or I'm remote, either based on intelligence or based on manual interactions, and you get to see what everybody else is doing. So that little enhancement over the building on the calendar, that card that pops down, that's a core feature, and that's a ton of value. Right? You don't get the book a room button if you don't have premium, but you get a lot of useful information out of it.
Yeah, it makes sense because if you're going to use the premium feature, it's not going to be much use if you can only see half of the company that have that premium license. So it's a good decision to get all the basic features out there. So it's creating all this data and driving the user experience. But if you want to really get more value out of the signals and things that are coming through, then you get the premium.
Yeah, I think that was a big realization that Microsoft had, was that this, again, back to our get out what you put in analogy. If there's insufficient data in the pool, then your premium users are not going to have a good experience because they're not actually going to get actionable intelligence that they can. In-person events and hybrid RSVP are really just Outlook features. The ability to create a new meeting and say this is an in-person meeting, and the ability to respond to a meeting with a hybrid response are very important for Places because they're pieces of information that Places uses to recommend rooms, decide how many people it needs, that kind of stuff. And then the Places card is that drop down we were just talking about. So those are core features. Those are included in your E3, E5. Premium features require a Teams premium license. And this is really where some of the fancy stuff comes in. So Places Explorer, which is that enhanced view of the page with the homepage for the office, that kind of stuff. That's Places Explorer. Places Finder is that enhancement to Room Finder. Images, filter by availability, the floor plans, all that kind of stuff. That's all in the Places Finder, whether you view that in the Places experience or in Outlook. I'm going to ignore room check-in auto release because it's nothing to do with Teams Premium and just is based on your use of Teams Rooms Pro and panels and QR codes. And basically what this says is if you enable auto release for meeting rooms, if it detects no presence or activity on that room once it's been booked, it'll release it back to the public to be.
It's a backup if for some reason you didn't have a booking panel or using the signal that the room has started a Teams meeting. it would give individual users nudges to say, hey, you've got this meeting, do you want to check in?
Yeah, no, it does
So
that. If you
exactly,
plug into
yeah.
it and you use it, it'll tell you. But it also is related to the QR code stuff that we've just seen on. So that's another way of confirming presence, by the way, is a room check-in. Even if you just have a Teams panel with no Teams room and you QR check in, which you can do from the panel, that still gives you a +1 in the data source box, right? So
But no one's going to do that.
no, but it's there. We didn't talk about guidance. In the Places People tab, there is the opportunity for team managers to create work groups and put people in the work groups and then provide guidance to the work groups. And that essentially shows up as an extra row at the top saying, hey, Pizza Fridays, we're all going to go bowling at lunchtime. Why don't you come in the office? Or all hands meeting, things that are maybe all in your calendars but are not generally considered, okay, maybe we all should go to that, or we're all going to be in because we're going to go to the quiz night at the pub after work or whatever, right? It's social, but also maybe could be in person one-on-one day. I'm decreeing next Thursday is one-on-one day. Guidance says let's come in the office. Microsoft calls it guidance. They don't call it mandates. It's the ability to make suggestions to your org that they should come in the office that day.
Interesting point on that is that it's not actually linked to your Entra ID manager and the team that you're in as part of Entra ID. So you do have to set up a new work group for that.
Yeah,
and I think
be
good, but it would be probably nice if there was an option.
I'd go backwards and forwards on that. I think the idea is that it means that you don't have to be a manager to make suggestions. You just have to be a work group owner. So you don't. I work with cross-functional teams all the time that are
it allows
in the hierarchy.
And different virtual teams that you might be part of.
Yeah, intelligent suggestions is what we showed there on that mouse over from your calendar, which is okay. You've got 3 meetings that are 3 rooms in person. Here's a suggestion, right? It won't give you that recommendation to book a room if you don't have a premium license. It'll show you who's there, but it won't say you've got 3 unroomed meetings. And then Spaces Analytics, which we touched on but not really shown, you can't get at the analytics view of Places without a premium license. So if you want to be an admin and you want to see building and room usage and floor plan, hotspots and all that kind of stuff, you have to have a premium license. All right, and that doesn't to me seem like a particularly rough ask. This is the fun part. There are things for Copilot in Places because one of them at least, managed room booking, is not a Places feature. This is a Copilot feature which is being aligned with Places, and this is basically the ability for Copilot to look at things like, I don't know, I've got a recurring meeting. I always use the same meeting room, but on any one Thursday, that room isn't free. So instead of the room declining the whole series or declining the one-off, Copilot then a chance to adjust around that one or unavailability for that cadence. So that's what a managed room booking is. It will also intelligently update your booking based on other things. I don't know, 20 people decide to show up in person using the in-person response, and it's a 5-person room. Copilot apparently will start to go look for alternative rooms. And so we don't really know too much about that. How it's going to work yet. That was announced at Ignite. It hasn't been demoed, but it sounds quite compelling. It's interesting because you don't need a premium license for this, just a Copilot feature. So you could not be using Places at all, still benefit. The 2 others, which are both coming soon, are premium plus Copilot features. You need both Teams Premium to get access to the Places feature in the first place. And then if you have Copilot as well, you get this super duper extra sizzle. The Space Analytics one is fairly self-explanatory, right? You get to do Copilot on the Places Analytics. So you get to ask it questions. How's the Chicago building performing? You get to use an LLM to interact with it and talk to the data. And then in office days recommendations, it's basically Copilot says you should go in the office next Thursday because Tom, Dick, and Harry are doing pizza day.
I can live with, I'm a facilities manager. I paid $30 extra to make my job easier analysing the data. The in-office days recommendations is tough for me.
I've flipped that around and say, I've already got Copilot, and I should be getting extra in everything because I have Copilot. And so the extra I get in Places because I have Copilot are these things. Nobody with a straight face would say these features are reasons to buy Copilot licenses.
No.
But also users with Copilot licenses are the people that are buying all the things. Literally, those are the people that have an E5, a Premium, and Copilot. And they better be getting something good inside Microsoft Suite, including Places. And this is that, right? In-office day recommendations isn't massive, but it's quite nice. The managed room booking thing is not a Places feature, but it's a bit like in-person events. It's a Places necessary Outlook feature. which I think a lot of people are going to like.
It feels very much like, to me, keep me honest, guys, because you've been hands-on, that if I was a multi-hundred seat, multi-thousand seat org, and I'm not ready to spend more money yet, once the network mapping and Wi-Fi mapping comes along and the locations in Teams, it feels like I get quite a lot of value out of Core if I just invest the time doing the mapping and setting up room finder data right and having my Teams locations mapped.
Yeah, there is some busy work to do to set it up. But once you've made that time investment in your Exchange admin or whoever's going to do the PowerShell and frankly curating all your data, once that's done, Places is pretty good. Yes, you get a lot out of Teams Premium, but actually out of Core, you get good, valuable stuff. And Places is going to be turned on by default. Like you've probably seen the admin message that says Places is being turned on. So it's not they're doing the feature first thing and making you turn it off if you don't like it. I do think it's worth investing.
Specifically for the Places Finder taking over the Room Finder.
Yes, yeah. You don't have to enable Room Finder once you've enabled Places. That's a good call out. But I do think it's worth experimenting with. I'm biased. I've spent a lot of time inside it, but I do. Nobody that I've worked with to show them Places and get them set up with it has gone, oh, I wish we hadn't bothered.
And most people are wrestling with this hybrid. How do we help our people that commute regret?
I mean, when we launched this this stuff I've been showing is real stuff. We got Toronto and Chicago set up inside AVISPL. And the number of sales managers that said, I currently manage my team's plans on spreadsheets, especially the sales managers who have guys or gals that are generally out and about, and then they may be in the office 1 or 2 days a week just to check in with their design team or whatever. And they're being tracked in Smartsheets or spreadsheets or whatever. Oh, Bob's in on Monday and Fred's in on Tuesday. So this is manna from heaven for line managers who have busy lives with crap together that doesn't involve.
Broad part of the business it provides value to as well, because it's helpful for obviously end users, but for people and culture, HR teams are going to be interested in this. You got your workplace technology teams who are interested from the meeting room desk booking perspective, and then you've got property and facilities teams who are going to want that data around optimization.
Cool. Thanks, guys. That gives us a really good overview of what's happening. If people want to find out more, how can they reach you guys, Chris?
Pretty easy, avispl.com. Yeah, we'd love to talk about Places. I'm in particular got my hands pretty deep in it now. I know Nathan has as well. So depending on which side of the globe you're sitting, you can you can take your pick.
Yep. So for APAC region, we've got offers ready for anyone looking to do envisioning or discovery and look at readiness and through to deployment and adoption as well. So you can reach out to Generation E. It's generation-e.co. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I appreciate you both jumping on, and thanks for giving us a really good briefing and keeping it very real world. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you, Tom. Cheers, Nathan.
Thanks. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Chris.